Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. So welcome to the show, Elly. Thanks so much for coming on today. I always like to start with what brought my guest to France, to Paris. So tell me a little bit more about why you moved to the City of Light.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. So I moved to France almost 10 years ago, and I came over originally to teach English through the TAPIF program. If you or any of the listeners are familiar with it, the teaching assistant program in France. And it was only supposed to be a 7-month program, and then I was going to go back to the US or go somewhere else. I hadn't really figured that much out yet. All I knew is I wanted to do something exciting and adventurous and keep traveling the world. And then I met a French guy a couple months after arriving, and as they say, the rest is history, and I am still here almost 10 years later.
That's fantastic. Love kept you here. I love that. So talk a little bit about what you do now. You're living as a Franco-American actress. Talk a little bit about that.
So becoming Franco-American is relatively new. I got my French citizenship just a couple months ago, and I got my passport maybe 2 months ago. So that was a long time coming and really hard. And anyone who goes through French bureaucracy knows how satisfying it is to finally hold those papers in your hand. And as far as work goes, I'm an actress and a voice actress. I didn't start out as an actress and voice actress when I came to France, but that's what I do now. And I feel super lucky that that's what I get to do with my life here.
Yeah, and talk about how you fell into that. So how does one get into voice acting?
So I guess I should start a bit earlier. So I've been doing theater and acting pretty much my whole life. I never knew that it would be possible to do it as a career because, as we all know, it's very cutthroat, very competitive. And I just didn't think it would be something that would be possible for me, let alone moving to a foreign country and being an American. I didn't think that any opportunities would exist for someone who wasn't French. And long story short, I did the teaching assistant program for 2 years, and then I started working full-time. It was an event agency, but they also did video production. They kind of did a little bit of everything, and they occasionally needed some voiceovers done in English. And the boss said, "Why don't you give it a try?" And so I did. And he said, "Oh, you did really well. Why don't we keep using your voice for videos?" And then I started going to some local productions in English around Paris. It was actually a Big Funk event. And I know Jimmy is part of the Big Funk, and he was on a previous episode. And I met some American actors there that made their living acting and voice acting in Paris. And I just started talking to some of them, and one thing led to another. I have a career now. So something that was really great about meeting people from that community was that they really took me under their wing and helped me out and led me where I needed to go and connected me with other people that could help me get to the next step. And to answer the question about how to get into voice acting, Honestly, starting to go and meet people that do it for a living. How to get into voice acting, I would definitely suggest going to visit different productions that are done in English around Paris because pretty much everyone who works as an actor here also does voice acting.
So they go hand in hand. That makes a lot of sense. And talk about what it's like to be a voice actress. Like, what does your day look like when you're on set? What are you doing?
So I definitely don't work every day. I am what's known as intermittente spectacle, which is something that exists in France and I think maybe a few other countries. So it helps support artists when they're not getting work. And when I do go on set, so if I'm on set because I'm doing something on camera, that looks very different from when I am in the booth doing a voiceover. So when I am on camera, I have a bit of a glam squad. I usually have a makeup artist or someone doing my hair, and that's always very exciting. Whereas in the booth, no one sees you. So you can look as ruddy as you'd want to. And that's something that is a bit of an advantage. You don't have to really get ready physically to do voice acting, but you do have to warm up your voice, of course. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, what does that day look like for you? So it sounds like for the voice acting, you just show up and you warm up your voice and then they give you a script.
Yes, I very, very rarely get to do improv with voice acting unless it's a few little what they call barks, maybe like a hiya, hoo, oof, like your character's getting beat up or beating someone up.
I love that. And talk a little bit about what it was like to work on Emily in Paris. What did you do with them?
Oh, wow. That is probably my favorite acting memory so far. So I have a friend who I met in an acting class, one of the first acting classes I took here in Paris. And he ended up working on the production of Emily in Paris. And he actually helped me figure out what take to send for my audition. And I was freaking out. I probably did this take. It was one line, but I did this one line probably 20 times because it's always the lines or the takes that are super short that make you overthink the most.
Yeah.
And so I sent him all these different takes. He picked his favorite, sent it in, and I just crossed my fingers and I ended up getting the news that I got the role. And now it was a super short scene, but it was really fun. And it was honestly one of the most glamorous days of my life because a car came to pick me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I had my hair done. I had my makeup done. I got to go to wardrobe. I got to do a fitting where Emily actually goes and gets her fittings done. And that was just really exciting because it was just a whole apartment in Paris. I think it was a 3-bedroom apartment and it was all filled with racks of beautiful clothes.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. That sounds like a dream. And then what happened next?
Well, I found out that one of my good friends was going to be playing my scene partner. So it was a scene where I was getting proposed to and I had to go, yes, yes. And it was just so exciting that I got to do that with such a good friend. And then one of my other best friends who was working in production, he was there that day. So it was just a full circle moment. And I just had so much fun and I just had such a high that day. And I just felt like, wow, this is what it's all about. This is one of those feelings that you can't replicate.
Yeah, I mean, that's like a dream for so many, especially since it's such a hit show right now. And talk a little bit about working on French productions versus American productions. Like, what are some of the differences or their cultural shock moments?
So I actually haven't worked on any sets except for short films in the US, but I have worked for American companies that have shot things over here. And something that I will say that is interesting, the snack table seems to be a lot better on American productions. I mean, they have food constantly around. I mean, they take craft services very seriously, which I found a little ironic because France is normally the land of food. You know what I mean? And it was
Yeah.
just funny to me that they're always having a lot of snacks in the American ones. And as someone who loves snacks, I'm all about it.
You're like, yes, bring me the snacks.
Yes,
And talk
exactly.
about voice acting. It's such a unique art. What's your process for bringing characters to life through just your voice?
So that's what's super fun about voice. So that's what's super fun about voice acting is you have a lot of creative freedom as far as the first takes go. And then you always have a really amazing director that you're working with who can help shape that into their vision. So I did an animated series that unfortunately has since been canceled, but I did a bunch of different characters on that show. So some people, when they're getting cast in an animated series, they'll be one of the main characters and they pretty much only do that voice. And I was kind of a side character, but I got to do a bunch of different voices in between. So I would do an old woman one day, and then I would do a bunch of little kids another day, and all kinds of random people. And I had to change my voice for each of those. So when the director would just say, okay, give me a different voice. Okay, well, maybe this person can have a British accent, or maybe this person is going to have a Western accent, or they're going to be old, or they're going to be young. And then if it's not something that the director had in mind or was looking for, they just kind of shape it into what they want and just keep giving me more direction. And hopefully I deliver and give them what they want. And then we just go from there. And it's just a lot of play as well.
Yeah, it's nice to have some help because you're like, what do you want?
Exactly.
And comedy is clearly close to your heart. What role does humor play in your daily life and your work?
Well, in my daily life, I love to make jokes and riff with friends. I also performed with an improv troupe for a couple years called the Improvokers. And in my work, ironically, I frequently get cast in either romantic roles or in dramatic roles, which is great. I love it. I love any type of work and exploring any type of role, but it's not what I am trying to do all the time. And that's what I love about working with my theater company, because we tend to explore absurd comedies and I get to play really funky, fun roles in that. So I do get my fix that way.
Yeah, definitely. And improv requires vulnerability and quick thinking. What has improv taught you about creativity or even about yourself? Because did, like you said, you're working in improv for many years.
I think one of the most important skills that improv has taught me is that it's okay to fail, because you are never going to be 100% on it all the time. Sometimes a scene is going to fall flat, or you're going to mess up, or anything could happen because it's improv. You don't have a script. You haven't rehearsed. And it shows you that it's okay to make mistakes as long as you get back up and try again. And that's something that I really love about it.
And you also co-founded Spin Cycle Theater, which performs absurd comedies with heart. Can you share the origin story of the company?
Yes. So it was 5 of us that all met in an acting class, and it was the fall of 2019. And of course, as we know, going into spring 2020, when we were all still taking the class together, we went into lockdown and we all became good friends, and we decided, hey, we still want to keep the class going. So what can we do while we're all cooped up in our respective homes? So we decided to start reading Christopher Durang plays. And if someone's not familiar, Christopher Durang always has these wacky characters. So he'll have a wacky character and then he'll have a straight character. And they're just really fun and really funny. And we just had so much fun reading them. And we said one day, why don't we get some of these plays, get together, and just put on a show? And that's sort of what happened. And we did our first show as a night of Christopher Durang one acts. And I think we did 5 or 6 shows, and they were all sold out, and it was a blast. And we're still performing to this day.
I love that. And talk about what absurd comedy with heart means to you. How do you keep it grounded and human?
So something that we really like to do at Spin Cycle is things that aren't always seen here in the theater scene in Paris, because much of the theater here is very classic. It's very cerebral, and we like to do funky stuff. We like to do stuff that is silly, but also at the end of the day, you're going to hopefully take a little bit of a lesson from it. So I'd like to just give an example really quick. One of the shows we did was about a really bored and angry housewife whose subconscious voices came to life. So the devil on her shoulder and the angel on her shoulder came to life. And at the end of the play, they helped her husband realize that he needed to start pitching in with the kids in the house. And, of course, it had a very nice ending. And that had the lesson that, hey, we all need to pitch in and work on our relationships.
I like that. Yeah, definitely. Keep it fun, keep it light, be a little kooky, something we don't really do in Paris.
Exactly. And we also always want to constantly trying to be doing something new. So soon we're going to be doing a couple representations of White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, which is a show where the actor does not get the script until it starts. So,
oh my gosh, that sounds scary.
I know it sounds so scary, but at the same time, you can't mess it up or do poorly because you have no idea what you're walking into. You can't read anything about the play. You can't know anything about the play because if you do, you can't perform it. So that's just something that we like to do. We like to take risks and try these new, exciting things. And I think our first play, I think we're going to start doing them in July. I think we might have 2 dates, but I'm not 100% sure. We're still working with theaters, but it's going to be very exciting. And at some point, all of us in the company are going to do it. So each one is going to be completely different from the last because you never know what you're going to get.
How do you choose which plays you're going to perform? Like there's so many options. How do you choose?
At baseline, we pick things that make us all laugh. That's one of the number one criteria that we have. Of course, we're not opposed to exploring something dramatic or more touching, but honestly, we tend to go with plays that make us laugh. We go with plays where we can see the potential. So maybe the writing isn't 100% because we're using a play by an amateur playwright, but we can see how we can stage it. Or we talk to the playwright and they say they're not super firm on certain parts of the dialogue, or we can switch it up based on the audience that we're going to have, because sometimes we've had to ask authors if we can change some jokes because we have a French audience or we have a Romanian audience or things of that nature. And usually people have been pretty receptive of that. And yeah, that's what I would say for that.
So are you usually performing for French people, Anglophones? It's a mix. Like, do they respond differently to different comedy?
We tend to perform for either Anglophones or French people that speak English very, very well. It's been rare that we've had people tell us they completely relied on our surtitles here in Paris to understand our show. It might be the date or the friend of someone that is tagging along with them to one of our shows that has no idea what they're getting themselves into. And I would say when we performed in Romania, that's where we had the most lost in translation kind of experience, because people understood the show and they had the surtitles, but they didn't laugh. And so it was honestly very, very awkward at first. We didn't understand what was going on. But at the end, everyone told us, oh, we loved your show. We had so much fun. And then we were asking them like, okay, but why didn't you laugh out loud? And they were just like, oh, it's not what we do, but we thought it was really funny. I mean, we laughed on the inside, like, oh, okay. And the Romanian that's in our troupe, her name is Raluca. She said, oh, yes, I forgot to tell you guys, that's what tends to happen here. So we didn't have that little bit of cultural background information before we performed there. So it was very destabilizing at first. But, we realized, okay, that's just the culture. We just have to suck it up, do our best, and know and understand that they do like it. They are enjoying it. They're just maybe not expressing it in the way that all of us are used to.
That's so funny. It was just like, we learned something new about Romania.
Yes, exactly.
So have you found a creative community in Paris? Has there been any surprises about your artistic life here?
Honestly, I'm most surprised that there is such a large community and so many opportunities for Anglophones. That is a very pleasant surprise, I will say. And yes, absolutely. I think the Anglophone acting community is incredibly supportive. We are always there for one another. If you need help with a self-tape, if you need help promoting your show, if you need an audience for your show, I mean, we all go and see each other's stuff. And it's so fun to see what everyone comes up with. And if they do a one-person show or they start doing stand-up, there's just so many different paths that you can follow in this community, because there's Anglophone improv, there's musicals, there's our troupe, there's Big Funk, there's Curious Creatures, Jimmy, who does these fabulous play readings. And yeah, it's really what you make of it with the community. Everyone is so supportive. And if you want to break into this kind of industry, I don't think you could find a better group of people to work with.
And so what keeps you inspired in the city? What do you do when you're feeling, unenthused? How do you keep the creativity going?
I love to go see other productions, whether or not they're in French or English. Do things like that, go see stand-up, or just something creative in my own home, like making friendship bracelets or painting, things like that. As long as I'm getting my creative juices flowing in some way, I think that helps get me, out of a rut or out of my own head. And of course, spending time with my spin cycle people. We meet usually on Fridays and we just read plays with each other, and we just have a really great time, and we're silly and we laugh. And we can start thinking of other things that we'd like to write or do. And all kinds of things come from those little play readings that we do on Fridays.
That's so fun. And talk about your favorite part of the creative process, the writing, the rehearsals, the performance. Which part do you like the most?
Absolutely the rehearsals, because not only is it always fun and it feels like I'm just hanging out with my friends, but at the end of the day, it's so much play. And every single rehearsal really can uncover new ways to see a character or deliver a line or interact with your partner. And something that we do in Spin, at least, we are incredibly collaborative. So we might have a director, but when it comes to each show, there is no real hierarchy. So even if we have a director, if someone who's not even in the play is just sitting and watching the rehearsal, they might offer an opinion or a suggestion of a way to do something that we hadn't done before, just to try it or do an exercise. And it's always taken with enthusiasm and, okay, let's give it a try. Or if one of the actors thinks, the way we're doing the scene is just not working for me, can we try doing it a different way? We're all very open to it, and it's awesome. It's just such a collaborative environment.
Yeah, that's the best, just bouncing ideas off each other. And how do you overcome creative blocks or self-doubt, especially in such a competitive industry?
Oh, self-doubt is really hard. And I have to be completely honest, it is always lurking in the back of my mind. I think we all have a bit of imposter syndrome at some point. I'm going to be completely transparent. I do a lot of therapy to help me work through self-doubt. And then something that also helps, when you are cast in a role, you have to believe at the end of the day, I was cast for this role for a reason. You also didn't cast yourself, so you were chosen for a reason. You are the right person for this role, no matter what the opportunity is. That is just how you have to see it. You did not make the final decision. You were not the director saying, she has this or she has that. You may have gotten lucky, because there's all kinds of things that go on behind the scenes that determine who gets what part. But honestly, just realizing that you're there, you got the role, being thankful, and just going out and doing a kick-ass job with it. That's how you have to overcome it.
I love that. And talk about the weirdest or funniest thing that's happened to you on stage or in a voice booth.
Definitely the thing in Romania where no one laughed, and I was with my scene partner doing the first one-act play, so he and I were the first people to experience that. And it was almost paralyzing at first to deliver these lines where normally we get a ton of laughs to absolute silence. And he and I kind of had this panicked deer in the headlights look to each other, on the sly, of course, thinking, oh my God, are we just terrible? Are we not funny? Are we are we doing the right text? Did we mess something up? And then, of course, you have to get your head on right and do the best job that you can, despite the circumstances. But yeah, once we got done with our one act and we went backstage and saw everyone else, we were all looking at each other like, what just happened? And that's when Raluca said, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, this is what can happen sometimes in Romania when you're performing. So we ended up laughing about it. We still bring it up to this day.
I know, that's really crazy. I would be so embarrassed.
I know, I was at first.
So talk about how you would describe Paris as a character in a play.
Okay, I love this question. I would say she is the mysterious, maybe slightly aloof woman. She absolutely is smoking. She has a smoker's voice, and she's this sexy enigma that you are just dying to see what she's going to bring.
I think that's a great description. I totally agree.
Yes.
And so we've visitors are coming to Paris. They don't speak French. They want to see some theater. They want to see funny things, improv. Where do you recommend they go?
Well, if we have a show, I recommend they can look up Spin Cycle Theater on Instagram or Facebook and see what we have going on. There's also Sortir à Paris that has some theater on their website. And oh, wow, that's a really good question. I don't know if we have a concentrated website on where to find all the Anglophone events in Paris, and you just gave me a wonderful idea. But I would say looking up some of the English-speaking companies, so English Theater in Paris, and I guarantee our company is going to come up, Big Funk, Curious Creatures, and I think those are 3 large ones. There's also the new improv musical, which is such a blast, and I highly recommend it to anyone who is coming to Paris. And if they are playing, they do a musical that is completely improv, and it's a lot of fun.
Oh, that sounds super fun. I've been saying that for years. I'm like, we should put all the Anglophone stuff on one website, and I don't think that exists yet. So yes, you be the one. And how would you define creativity in your own words?
I think I would say that creativity is inspiration that comes to fruition. So it's taking this idea and making it real, whether it's a play, piece of art, sculpture, a song, as long as it's leaving your head and your mind space and going into the world.
I like that. Yeah, no, nothing could be more true. And what's the best advice you've been given?
This is really hard sometimes as an actor, but I would say don't take yourself so seriously. I mean that in many ways, and I've been told that. So when it comes to not getting a casting, or if you get cut on the cutting room floor and your scene doesn't make it to air, or your show gets canceled, or the project you're working on gets canceled, being able to pick yourself back up and move on and realize sometimes, these things just happen. It's the nature of the business. And as long as you keep getting up and going back out there and trying again and making connections and staying inspired and making things happen, or just making things in general, it's going to work out.
I think that's great advice. And where can people connect with you, learn more about your work? Is there any upcoming shows you want to share?
So hopefully we will have White Rabbit, Red Rabbit, at least 2 shows in July. If not in July, we're going to have them in the fall. And you can follow us at Spin Cycle Theater on Instagram, and that's where you could connect with me if you wanted to. And yes, we also have a website and a Facebook.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing with me today. And I can't wait to see what you'll do next.
Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.